Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, a suicide bomber kills more than 20 at a Saudi Shia mosque, according to Danish, who have claimed responsibility for the attack. Also tonight, 2 Saudis are also killed in rocket attacks lodged from Yemen. A truly Mexican standoff happens as 40 are dead in a cartel area within Mexico tonight. Boko Haram prisoners, I should say, who did not want to fight against Boko Haram may have hope of getting off death row. And in the UK, a former Scottish secretary has been found to be leaked behind a recent memo behind the countdown to the general election, according to the latest inquiry. Plus, a bomb found in London, and it's from World War II. We got the explosive details on tonight's Evan Miller Report. Plus, the always explosive Corey Evan.
Yes, I am explosive.
About TV's most famous family counting down to being off the air?
Yes, apparently. But first, North Korea nuclear talks are ongoing as a U.S. envoy heads to Seoul. A New York City hot dog vendor sold Frank Sartor's for $30. That makes Pink's hot dogs look cheapo-deepo. A load of Merkel has cropped up in our business report. Hungarian moms gather in McDonald's joints to feed their little ones in our continuing battle against global socialism. And yet another TLC show bites the dust in entertainment. They gotta find something better to base their schedule on. That's all coming up in your conservative news source, the Evan Miller Report, starting now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Friday, May the 22nd, 2015. I'm Jason Miller. Corey Evan in just a moment with the latest out of North Korea and some other big international news stories hitting the press today. And a programming note for those of you tuning in tonight, we will not be on air on Monday in honor of Memorial Day, in honor of our veterans. We will have a best of special, though, on at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, right here on the SHR Media Network. So if you guys do not have anything to do on your Memorial Day, stuck in inclement weather, for example, as the weather forecast is suggesting in some states, but then by all means listen to our Best of the Evan Miller Report special at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Some of our best interviews we've done here on the program, plus Corey is cooking up a nice Best of Lawsuits Across America segment, so we are looking forward to that as always. So just that programming note that we will not be live on Monday, and we will be back with a regular scheduled program on Tuesday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. All right, folks, let's now get to the main news on tonight's program. A suicide bomber has killed more than 20 worshippers on Friday in a packed Shiite mosque in eastern Saudi Arabia. Residents and the health minister have said the first attack in the kingdom to be claimed by the likes of Danish militants. It was one of the deadliest assaults in recent years in the largest Gulf Arab country, where sectarian tensions have been frayed by nearly 2 months of Saudi-led airstrikes on the Shiite Houthi rebels in neighboring Yemen. More on Yemen in just a moment. More than 150 people were praying when the huge explosion ripped through the Imam Ali Mosque in the village of Al-Adwin, according to witnesses. A video posted online showed a hall filled with smoke and dust, with bloody people moaning with pain as they lay on the floor littered with concrete and glass. More than 90 people were wounded, according to Saudi's health minister, who spoke on state television. Now to Yemen, where cross-border rocket attacks launched from inside of Yemen have killed 2 people and wounded 5 others in southern Saudi Arabia over the last 24 hours. This coming from Saudi Arabia's state news agency SPA today. It quoted a civil defense official in the southwestern province of Jizan as saying that a child was killed and 3 other children were wounded on Friday in the Al Tawain region. A rocket attack on Thursday also killed 1 citizen and wounded 3 others in Al Hassan village, according to the agency reported earlier. Al Masri TV channel run by the Houthi fighters being targeted by a Saudi-led campaign of airstrikes broadcast footage earlier this week which said it showed Houthi fighters entering a Saudi border post after being fired on by Saudi tanks and helicopters. Over to Nigeria now, where their incoming president may review the death sentences of 66 soldiers convicted for refusing to fight Boko Haram, a lawyer has said. Femi Falasine told the BBC that Muhammad Buhari had promised to review all operations against the militants. He said that he was now confident the soldiers who said that lacked weapons to take on the Islamic insurgents would not be executed and face justice. This week it was revealed another 579 soldiers faced trial over indiscipline. Army spokesman Zaina Zerzman said the court-martial currently taking place in the capital of Jonah were to ensure professionalism in the army. The International Committee of the Red Cross has said that Boko Haram, which began in 2009, has caused one of the most serious humanitarian crises in Africa yet. And I do have another story here, which I managed to lose here in the moments here before broadcast, so I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We'll try to get to that story later. That story was of some importance to me. We'll see if we can find it. Cholera has infected about 3,000 people in Tanzania, this according to the United Nudist, where many Burundians have fled, seeking refuge from their country's unrest. Up to 400 new cases are being seen each day, the UN's refugee agency said. Over 100,000 have left Burundi in recent weeks. Yep, I do blame the computer, thank you very much. In the latest arrest, at least 2 people were killed in a grenade attack in the capital, Burundi. Those who did this had an intention to kill because the grenades were thrown among women selling fruits in a big crowd, General Binsma, a deputy police chief, told the AFP news agency. There were fresh protests in Burundi on Friday against Mr. Nwerza's bid to extend his rule, a move critics say is unconstitutional. And here's that story that I had meant to bring up here, and this has to do with an update on a story that we had earlier here, and this has to do with Iraq tonight. A British suicide bomber who helped Islamic State militants or Daesh militants advance into the Iraqi city of Ramadi happened to be a popular bodybuilding schoolboy from the UK. This according to ITV News in the UK. Known as Abu Masoon al-Bradini, a A-level student, Fatim Shahiq, 20, was among the first of 6 militants to blow himself up as a Daesh surged into Ramadi earlier this week. It comes after his brother Vladimir, 23, died on the front line in Iraq back in March. One of Shahiq's former school friends told ITV News' Julia Bremner that it was an extremely friendly young man who liked to post pictures of his honed fisque on social media. His transition into extreme Islam was gradual, the friend said, where his brother's conversion was more than noticeable and dramatic. He said, quote, Fatim was extremely friendly, approachable, and competitive when it came to exercise and posting pictures of himself on Facebook of his well-honed physique. He was very popular. Whenever you would run into him in the street, he always was surrounded by a large group of friends. He said the friend also said he believed that there was a gang of around a dozen Daesh recruiters operating in and around Holland Park School in London, where both brothers attended, targeting people they believed could be converted to their cause. Other known jihadists, Hazan Parvez and Mohammed Nasir, who died fighting in 2013, were also former students of the school. And of course, we'll have more UK news later on in the program. Now to Mexico, where about 40 people were killed in what authorities described as a large-scale Mexican shootout between the law enforcement and criminal suspects in western Mexico. Almost all dead were suspected criminals, said a federal police official who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to talk with journalists. There were few details of the reported gun battle, but video obtained by the AP showed federal police coming under fire and bodies strewn throughout a ranch. A local police official in the neighboring town of Puerto de Vargas said the location is called Rancho de Sol. The official won't give his full name to the AP, but said his department received a report of the confrontation from fellow police in the neighboring town Duggar and was told to keep everyone calm. And we'll keep you up to date on that story if there's any more developments as they become available. Oh yeah, indeed, so much for that Mexican standoff. All right, folks, I will be back with the latest news out of Europe, including, for the first time in 24 years, more Australians are moving to New Zealand than the other way around. But first, we send it over to Corey Evan. He has other world headlines.
Indeed, I do. Starting in North Korea, this coming to us from the Washington Post. Thank you very much, the Washington Post. If this will work here. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Bit of a technical issue going on here. There it goes. A senior U.S. envoy will hold joint talks about North Korea next week with Japan and South Korea, and then with China. The latest round of regional diplomacy on how to deal with the unpredictable government of Kim Jong-un comes as North Korea steps up claims of its nuclear and missile capabilities. Earlier this month, North Korea said it had tested a new type of missile from a submarine. This week, the powerful National Defense Commission said the North could miniaturize a nuclear weapon. The State Department says U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Policy Sung Kim will hold talks in Seoul starting Tuesday with his South Korean and Japanese counterparts. He then goes to Beijing on Thursday to meet with his Chinese counterpart. And we'll still keep an eye on this story, and we'll bring you the latest developments as they become available. Next story coming to us from Al Jazeera, Quality Arab Television, and Death to America. Colombia's Marxist FARC rebels suspended a unilateral ceasefire after government troops killed 26 of its fighters, the guerrilla group said Friday. Quote, "We deplore the attack by the Air Force, Army, and police executed in the early hours of Thursday morning," the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, said in a statement. Late last year, FARC declared a one-sided ceasefire, but President Juan Manuel Santos ordered a resumption of military strikes after a rebel attack last month that killed 10 government troops. Thursday's airstrike raises doubts about peace talks that resumed that day between FARC and the Santos government. The president campaigned for his second term on the promise of securing peace with the rebels. The stop-start negotiations, which have been hosted by Cuba for over 2 years, wow, Cuba, I didn't know they were capable of it, are aimed at ending the country's 5-decade-long civil conflict, which has killed more than 200,000 people. Santos has declined to end fighting until there's a final peace agreement, though he has suspended air raids after rebel attacks ceased. The attack Thursday involved military and police and took place in Guapi in the Cauca region of western Colombia, an FARC stronghold and an area popular with drug gangs. FARC was founded in 1964 and has about 8,000 fighters. So you can tell that the FARC are something dangerous to be dealt with. And I've got another one on the Rohingya migrant boat crisis going on in the Asia-Pacific region. There we are. From the UK Independent, Burma will not bow to pressure to use the Rohingya name because they are not a genuine ethnic minority, Uye Hetut, the country's Minister for Information and spokesman for Burmese President Thein Sein, has said. Speaking a day after Burma joined the international effort to rescue the Andaman boat people, Mr. Ye Hetut offered the Independent a longer perspective on a problem that has seen both Burma's quasi-democratic government and opposition figurehead Aung San Suu Kyi chastised for callous rejection of their own Muslim population. In essence, he located the origin of the issue in the surging movement of the other Asians into Burma after it fell under British control in the 1880s. His comments yesterday will infuriate those who blame Burma for discriminatory policies which they say make a mockery of the Buddhist faith of 85% of the population, but they help to explain why the impasse over the use of the word Rohingya appears so hard to break. And I'll send that one to Jay in a moment here to post up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. And one from France, from the BBC. Apparently, pickpocketers have led to the Eiffel Tower being shut down for 6 hours because of a staff walkout. They were protesting, said pickpocketers. Workers say the gangs of pickpocketers are increasingly threatening them with assault or abuse. The company managing the major tourist attraction thanked the public for its understanding and said it regrets that visitors are being punished. About 7 million people go up to the tower every year. The tower reopened this afternoon. Staff are demanding formal guarantees from management to stop pickpocketing gangs who target numerous tourists every day. The staff's union representative, Dennis Vavasuri, told the AP news agency that the staff had walked out, quote, so we could ask for a permanent police presence here, unquote. And it's a very shameful thing, Jay, that they've ended up needing police presence up in the Eiffel Tower just to ward off pickpocketers these days. They'll go to no ends to get their take.
Yeah, apparently. Disturbing situation. Who would ever think we'd have an influx of pickpockets in the Eiffel Tower? Interesting story to say the least. Corey Evan with pickpocketers in the Eiffel Tower. Thank you very much for that. All right, on to other European news of more serious nature tonight. For the first time in 24 years, more Australians have moved to New Zealand to live and work than the other way around. This, according to the new and latest government figures from the government that last month said had a net inflow of 100 Australian migrants. New Zealanders traditionally flocked to Australia, which had a booming economy and offered higher wages. But Australia's mining-reliant economy has slowed down while New Zealand is still doing well. Both countries have an agreement allowing their citizens to live and work freely in each other's state. In the past, an estimated 40,000 New Zealanders would migrate to Australia every year, adding to the complex rivalry between the two countries. From the Kiwa point of view, Australia was the land of milk and honey, a big, rich brother who would help set you up for life, wrote the Australian's associate editor Cameron Stewart in a piece last month titled Revenge of the Kiwas. The New Zealanders were dubbed Bongdi Bulgers, who either stole our jobs or sucked up our welfare. The brain drain also worried New Zealand, which has been working to attract more skilled migrants. However, in recent years, the number of New Zealanders moved into Australia has steadily fallen. It has lost 1,900 of its people to Australia between April 2014 and April 2015, the smallest net loss since 1992, reported Radio New Zealand. One of those major reasons appears to be a reversal in economic fortunes, which I think, ladies and gentlemen, and I will have Corey Evan back me up on this because he does the business news every day, this issue is not just happening in one country. This is a worldwide issue.
Unfortunately, this is true because, the immigration issue in the U.S., that's sucking up our jobs right there. And we see it going on in Europe, Australia now. It seems like there's no way to escape it, no matter where you live, even if you live in burgeoning South America.
Absolutely right. All right, moving on to the Netherlands tonight. I believe that's our next story. Yes, it is. The Dutch cabinet has approved plans for a partial ban on wearing the face covering Islamic veil in public places, including schools, hospitals, and on public transport. However, the proposed ban will not apply to wearing the veils on the streets, officials say. Those who flout the ban could be fined up to $450 US. That's about 290, I believe, if I get this correctly, British dollars, and 405 euros. Only a few hundred women in the Netherlands are thought to wear burqas, most of them only occasionally. The proposed new law will be sent to a panel of legal advisors for assessment, according to reports. The panel was heavily critical of an effort in 2012 by the government to ban burqas. Yes, thank you very much. I did have a bit of a brain freeze right there. Yes, it is 290 British pounds. thank you to Corey Evan, our business guy, for correcting that. It's Friday, ladies and gentlemen. We have a long holiday weekend coming up. I apologize. I should be at my best. I'm at my worst today. Thank you, Corey Evan, for bailing me out. All right, moving on to UK news now. Prime Minister David Cameron has said he is confident he can get a better deal for the UK in Europe, but admitted it won't be easy. Speaking at an EU summit in Lafayette, he said he had not been greeted by a wall of love when he met EU leaders for the first time since his election win. But he said he had a mandate and the British people at his back for the charges he wanted to achieve. The Prime Minister will hold talks with the likes of Angela Merkel and the EU Commission boss Jean-Claude Juncker next week. Mr. Cameron will also meet with French President Francois Hollande as he tries to win support for his position. Other EU countries have said they will listen to what the UK has to say. The Finnish Prime Minister Alexander Stubb saying he backed the UK's proposals to cut red tape and was sure some kind of compromise could be reached. Meanwhile, the former Scottish Secretary who was behind a controversial leaked memo released in the countdown to the general election in the UK, has been found according to an inquiry. His name is Secretary Alistair Carmichael. An official inquiry by the Cabinet Office found that Alistair Carmichael had given permission to his special advisor, Union Walton, to release the memo to the newspaper The Daily Telegraph, according to a report released following the investigation. Both Mr. Carmichael and Mr. Walton have now admitted their role in the controversy. Neither will claim the severance pay they would normally be entitled to when a minister loses their seat. And it's not every day that we hear this, but a massive possibility of an explosion was found near Wembley today. The normal place where tennis is usually supposed to be happening, an unexploded World War II bomb uncovered by builders near the likes of Wembley Stadium posed a genuine risk to life. This according to the British Army. The 50 kg or 110-pound device was removed by a specialist army team and safely detonated. The bomb, thought to date from the early 1940s of World War II, Germany. I apologize about the noise. The bomb, thought to date from the early 1940s German air raids on London, was found yesterday. Homes and businesses were evacuated, and the Army built a blast wall around the devices in case it exploded. The device was taken away by the Royal Logistic Corps disposal teams to a safe area to be detonated in a controlled explosion. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead, take a short break here on the program. When we come back tonight, for now, there will be no U.S. Embassy opening in the likes of Havana in Cuba. Also tonight, Hillary Clinton's got now classified Benghazi info in her private email files. That's new information being released today. And according to archives, they show Hillary Clinton okayed tax breaks for nonprofits back in the Clinton administration as her time as First Lady. We have all those stories and more, plus the Irish vote on gay marriage in global socialism. Plus, Corey Evan has what's coming up in the business news.
Yes, Merkel says that there's a lot of work left to do on Greece in our business report. That and Walmart says that the meat packers that send meat to their stores have some work to do to make it more customer friendly. Hungarian moms are gathering at McDonald's locations in Hungary to breastfeed their babies in protest of, well, you'll find out. And in addition to another TLC show being axed, I've got an update on Fuller House. There we are. That's all coming up on the Evan Miller Report. I'm Corey Evan. He's Jason Miller. This is SHR Media. And you'll be back with us, right?
We certainly will. The Evan Miller Report returns in 3 minutes.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog at
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Two California men arrested by the FBI aspired to join the ISIS group and bought a plane ticket for one of them to travel to Turkey with the hope of becoming a martyr, federal prosecutor said Friday to the AP. I'm Corey Evan. Jason Miller will be back in just a few minutes. The U.S. Attorney's Office charged 24-year-olds Nader Al-Wazail and Mahanad Badawi with conspiring to provide material support to a terrorist group. Today, both men appeared in shackles in a packed federal courtroom in Santa Ana. El-Uzail, who looked down during much of the proceedings, was arrested late yesterday at LAX and will return for a detention hearing Wednesday. His family and lawyer declined to comment after the hearing. Badawi, who appeared to listen intently to the judge, was held without bail, though his attorney said she may seek his release with restrictions to ensure he attends court. He was taken into custody late yesterday near his home in Anaheim, where both men live, authorities said. The FBI said in a court affidavit that the two men shared their support for the ISIS group on social media and in conversation, saying it would be a blessing to join the fight and die on the battlefield. No, it's just some made-up god that's not going to give you anything. I digress. But at any rate, in April, Badawi let El-Uzail use his debit card to buy a one-way Tel Aviv, Israel-bound plane ticket with a 6-hour layover in Istanbul, Turkey, the document said. El-Uzail had met a Palestinian woman on the internet he planned to marry, who also supported ISIS. But Badawi told another man about El-Uzail's plans, saying, I'm going to join soon. I don't know how soon, but I will go, the affidavit said. After his arrest, El-Uzail told authorities he was planning on getting off the plane in Turkey and traveling to fight with ISIS, according to the court ruling. If convicted, each man could face a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. Kate Corrigan, Badawi's lawyer, said her client was young, somewhat immature, and scared at the prospect of a potentially long prison sentence. He came to the U.S. with his family 8 years ago from Sudan and is studying engineering at Fulton College, she said. Maybe they should study up on ISIS and learn just how treacherous those people are before joining them. But never mind. That's all hindsight now. And I've got one out of Alabama from the Dallas Voice. A federal district judge ordered all probate judges to comply with the U.S. Constitution and issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Wait a minute. Comply with the U.S. Constitution? How are same-sex marriages in compliance with the U.S. Constitution again? Never mind. Back to the story. But the order doesn't go into effect until after the Supreme Court rules on marriage equality cases it heard in April. The judge ruled after 4 civil rights organizations asked the judge to expand her earlier ruling. Most Alabama probate judges started issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples in February after U.S. District Judge Callie V.S. Granade declared an Alabama law and an Alabama constitutional provision banning same-sex marriage unconstitutional. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court then declined to stay Granade's ruling. On March 3rd, Alabama Supreme Court halted same-sex marriages throughout the state by ordering probate judges to stop issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Granade's latest order overrides the Alabama Supreme Court's order. The ACLU of Alabama, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, the National Center for Lesbian Rights, and the Southern Poverty Law Center jointly filed the motion March 6th asking Granade to expand her ruling to apply to all same-sex couples and all probate judges throughout the state. The original order only applied to Mobile County. The district's court order will take effect when the U.S. Supreme Court issues its decision in several pending cases seeking the freedom to marry in 4 states. And before I send it over to Jay, I just have to point this one out to you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're out getting dinner right now, beware of anyone who might price gouge you, such as this metropolitan hot dog vendor in New York City named Ahmed Mohammed. Hot water. He was fired after he was found to be charging tourists, get this, $30 for a hot dog.
$30? Somebody take away that guy's wiener license.
You did it, Jay! You let it out there, and we're going to get a bundle of complaints on the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report.
If a bunch of angry words, they can email me, jmiller@shrmedia.com.
You've got options, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, you do. Get us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report, and Twitter @EM Radio Report. Good grief, $30 for a hot dog. I'll buy a Hebrew National at the grocery store before I buy $30. My
Yeah,
gosh,
or if you're in LA and stop off at Pink's Hot Dogs, you'll get a much better experience for even less money. But at any rate, yeah, New York City was, of course, at one point known for being very tough on this sort of thing, but welcome to New York City, people. Anyone who willingly hands over $30 to a hot dog vendor for a single hot dog is, by definition, someone who deserves to get soaked by the grand hustlers of New York City, according to Gawker.com, that is. But, yeah, this particular commentator here on Gawker.com is apparently saluting the $30 hot dog vendor. He's quoted as saying, "If we all pitch in and follow your lead, perhaps we can one day make this city so unfriendly that some of us will be able to afford an apartment." What the heck does he even mean by this?
Somebody has turned off the party music.
Hey, Loco Doc, why you turn off our party music?
$30 for a hot dog?
This
You
is
could get a nice
illegal.
little lobster
Illegal,
dinner
you
for
know.
that these days.
My goodness. Somebody's hot dogs / wiener stand was not built to code.
This is not my fault.
And I'm
This
sure
is not
that
built to code.
the health department will be out to inspect it after that. Knowing him, he probably didn't even wash his hands when he took in the $30 each.
Oh, now you even make me lose my appetite for dinner in less than 45 minutes.
It's New York, people! What do you expect to eat?
Oh, out of New York City, Corey Evan with the national news. My goodness, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't think the news could involve wiener licenses. Now it has. Thank you very much for that. Oh, boy. Let's get on to a serious story. Well, no embassy opening has been announced after our 4th round of talks between the United States and Cuba. A top U.S. diplomat has today called the talks very productive and doesn't foresee the need for a 5th round. Instead, Assistant Secretary of State for the Western Hemisphere, Roberta Jacobson, said the details could be ironed out by the respective diplomatic missions. Both the U.S. and Cuban sources told ABC News that they are optimistic an agreement will be reached on the fine details and an announcement made from a respective capital soon. The talks come 5 months after President Obama and Cuban leader Rodel Castro announced their intention to improve relations. Prior to those talks, the major sticking point for Americans was freedom for staff to move throughout the country. For the Cubans, it was the courses provided to Cuban journalists by U.S. government at the interest section in Havana, which they say fall outside normal diplomatic activities. Both countries have refused to get into the details of what remains to be worked out, this time saying only they continue to work forward on how an embassy will function in each other's country. All right, folks, time for the D.C. news now. Corey Evan with the business in just a moment. Former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton received information on her private email server about the deadly attack on the U.S. diplomatic failures in Benghazi that has now been classified. The email in question, forwarded to Clinton by her deputy chief of staff at the time, Jake Sullivan, relates to reports of arrest in Libya of possible suspects in the attack. Because the information was not classified at the time the email was sent, no laws were violated. But Friday's redaction shows that Clinton received information considered sensitive on her unsecured personal server, which came to light just as she was beginning her presidential campaign. Clinton campaigned in New Hampshire today said she was aware that the FBI wanted some of the email to be classified, but that doesn't change the fact all the information in the emails was handled appropriately. Well, not according to some, Miss Clinton, not according to some. And speak of which, in the Clinton administration's final months, this has to do with their last term, then First Lady Hillary Clinton took an active role in White House efforts to give tax breaks to private foundations and wealthy charity donors at the same time that the William J. Clinton Foundation at the time was soliciting donations for her husband's presidential library. Clinton-era documents show, memos archived in the Clinton Library show that Hillary Clinton endorsed the administration's legislative push for the tax reductions and unveiled the proposals to influential nonprofit representatives during a conference call in January of 2000, 3 months after she and President Clinton hosted charity leaders for a conference on philanthropy at the White House. The blurred lines between the tax reductions proposed by the Clinton administration in 2000 and the Clinton Library's fundraising were an early foreshadowing of the potential ethics concerns that have flared around the Clintons concerning of corporate and foreign donors for their family charity as she launched her campaign for the 2016 Democratic presidential nomination. You may remember we brought up a story earlier in the week regarding that $12 million from that foundation. All right, time for some GOP presidential politics now. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is doubling down on his promises of preemptive strikes to prevent what he says are certain future attacks on American soil. What does he mean, ladies and gentlemen? Well, he says as he prepares for a likely 2016 presidential run, he told a multi-state Republican gathering in Oklahoma yesterday that he's convinced radical Islamic terrorists are planning to attack the U.S. Walker offered no evidence for his claims at the Southern Republican Leadership Conference, but he didn't say who most threatens the United States or what military actions he'd authorize in response. As a governor, Walker has no access to intelligence briefings like those available to President Obama and other certain congressional leaders. Still, Walker said, quote, "It's not if another attempt is made on American soil, it is when." He said he'd take the fight to them before they take the fight to us, and that struggle would be protracted. The sentiments aren't new for Walker, but he's speaking in more hawkish terms after his recent visit to Israel, as he tries to stand out among several governors and former governors running for the Republican nomination without tangible foreign policy experience. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the latest in the business news. It's your closing bell.
Yes, and now I'm seeing red on Wall Street. The Dow is down 53 points at 18,232. The Nasdaq down 1.5 points at 50.89, and the S&P 500 down almost 5 points at 21.26. I'm guessing it's one of those weeks that you'd like to throw back there, eh, Wall Street? Never mind. I've got other bits of news for you, starting with a load of Merkel, and this comes to us from U.S. News. if this will work.
Merkel file.
Yes, there we are. With Greece facing a potential default in 2 weeks, German Chancellor Angela Merkel today sought to add urgency to the talks between the country and its international creditors, warning that, quote, very, very intensive work is still needed. Merkel and French President François Hollande spoke for about 2 hours with their Greek counterpart, Alexis Tsipras, at a summit in Latvia in an effort to pave the way for a deal to get Greece more loans. The friendly and constructive exchange, they call it, came after a leading official from Tsipras' party warned that Greece would not be able to repay a loan to the IMF on June 5th unless a deal is reached with its creditors to unblock bailout funds. Tsipras said he was optimistic that we can soon reach a stable, long-term, and sustainable solution without the mistakes of the past. You're right. Merkel still a whole lot left to be done to reach a deal that might keep Greece solvent. A default by Greece would destabilize the country further, potentially causing it to fall out of the euro, creating huge uncertainties for Europe and the global economy. Greece's new government has been struggling for 4 months to agree on reforms that creditors require in return for the disbursement of the remaining 7.2 billion euros, or $8 billion of our money, of the country's bailout program. Locked out of the international bond market by prohibitively high interest rates, Greece relies on the bailout funds to service its debts and avoid default. For Greece to get bailout loans in time to avoid their June 5th default potential, Eurozone finance ministers and representatives of the ECB and the IMF would all have to meet before that date to approve the details of an agreement. German officials said the three leaders could talk again if and when the talks hit a snag. Maybe it's not so much if as it is when. You know what I mean, Jay?
Aye, that I do, sir. Aye, that I do.
Yeah, because I'm not so optimistic about them being able to meet that date. But never mind, we've got some problems of our own at Walmart here in the U.S.
Extending it and extending it.
Yes, absolutely right. But never mind, we've got some U.S. business news, specifically the cuts of meat at Walmart. Walmart, according to Reuters, is pressing meat, seafood, dairy, and egg suppliers to reduce the use of antibiotics, becoming the first large retailer to take such a public stand against the excessive use of drugs in raising farm animals. Yes, maybe for once I'll even go ahead and buy some at Walmart.
Fresh chicken eggs here selling out here at the SHR grocery market.
Yes, SHR market. Ingredients for whatever. Any rate, the move comes as concern is growing over overuse of antibiotics in animals that could potentially spawn drug-resistant superbugs, endangering human health, of course. Walmart, the country's biggest food retailer, is also telling suppliers not to raise animals in gestation crates or in other conditions considered inhumane and illegal in the state of California, of course. The retailer is asking suppliers to its roughly 5,200 Walmart and Sam's Clubs in the U.S. to publicly disclose their use of antibiotics and treatment of animals on an annual basis. Walmart's move is the most significant by a retailer so far, advocates have said. Since it controls a quarter of the U.S. grocery market, the guidelines will likely ripple through the entire food supply chain and prompt rivals to follow suit. And let us see, we've got one more for you, and this is a little advice for those of you who do plan to head on out for the weekend, do a little staycation. Memorial Day, according to Fox News, is supposed to be the busiest in 10 years. Expect big crowds on the highways this weekend as Americans take advantage of a 5-year low in gas prices in other states other than California and hit the road in numbers not seen in a decade. Again, probably not in California. AAA projects that 37.2 million Americans will travel 50 or more miles from home. That's a 4.7% increase from the 35.5 million who traveled last year and the highest travel volume for the holiday in 10 years. Of those, 33 million will drive to their destinations. According to U.S. Travel Association President and CEO Roger Dow, gas prices are low, the economy is getting better, and people have money to spend and places to go. What are you smoking, Mr. Dow? Never mind. He said that Memorial Day travels will spend about $12.3 billion over the weekend, about $330 a person. The American Petroleum Institute said that the drop in gas prices has given average households a savings of around $750 this year. That, coupled with other factors like a lower rate of unemployment and a higher rate of disposable income, they say, are allowing Americans to splash out on travel. But myself, I'll probably just splash at my local pool once I'm done with all of my morning stuff on Monday.
And me, I'm just going to put my feet up, and I'm going to relax and enjoy.
So you've got the day off from.
Well, I'm taking the day off on the SHR Media Network, so my feet will be up, and I'll be watching a nice baseball game. America's favorite pastime. In the meantime, by following Memorial Day, as it should be, in honoring our veterans of past and future, which should be the main meaning of the holiday. I'm not trying to tell people I'm just going to be going around putting my feet up and watching baseball and drinking beer all day. The Memorial Day is a specific day, and it is to remember our veterans, and we should be remembering those veterans.
Yes, just remember them, but at the same time remember that they'd want us to continue living the American way if they were still with us. The ones that have died, that is.
Certainly right. And speaking of American way, in our continuing fight against for the American way, is now time for our continuing battle. What is that, Car?
It's our continuing battle against global socialism.
All right, and we start off tonight's global socialism segment in Ireland, overseas tonight. Counting a vote in Ireland's landmark referendum on gay marriage will begin at 9 a.m. on Saturday, with more than 3.2 million people eligible to vote, including tens of thousands who registered at the last minute and then returned home from overseas. The turnout was reported to be higher than average. If the reform to extend marriage rights to same-sex couples is passed, the Republic will be the first in the world to bring in by popular vote. It is only 22 years since Ireland decriminalized homosexuality. Early indications of how the vote is going are expected to filter into the count headquarters in Dublin Castle around mid-morning, with the result known by the afternoon of Saturday. Voters are now being asked one simple specific question on whether to amend Article 41 of the 1937 Constitution in Ireland by adding a new clause to a section titled The Family. It asks voters to support or reject a change to the 78-year-old document, which reads, quote, "Marriage may be contracted in accordance with law by two persons without distinction as to their sex," end of quote. And we'll keep you up to date on those results and give you a full result of that on Tuesday's Evan Miller Report. And now for the rest of tonight's Global Socialism news, over to Corey Evan in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Jay. And this one has to do with, if it'll load correctly, Hungarian mothers in a McDonald's breastfeeding protest. This from the BBC.
Oh, the horror!
I know, right? Mothers in the Hungarian capital Budapest have occupied a McDonald's in protest against its move earlier this week to stop a woman from breastfeeding her baby. Oh, brother, where will they stop? At any rate, several baby-carrying mothers entered a McDonald's near the Western Railway station, sat down, bared their boobs, and began feeding their babes. The protest was against the treatment of the young mother on Wednesday. A McDonald's statement blamed a security guard for the incident. Women are welcome to breastfeed in McDonald's restaurants as part of the fast food chain's family-friendly policy, the statement said. It added that an investigation into the incident had been launched. And the young mother caught up in the dispute wrote on Facebook, said, quote, "I was waiting for my sister who was due to arrive by train. I fed my baby at home before I set out in order to avoid this breastfeeding in public, but it was 86 degrees Fahrenheit and my baby was very hot and thirsty. I went into the restaurant at 9 in the morning and looked around for a quiet spot where I wouldn't disturb anyone. I asked a waitress and she said it would be fine, but when she started the feed, a security guard told her she was not engaging in accepted activity in the restaurant. The guard then went away to check with the manager, came back, and asked her again to stop. When she told a friend what had happened, the story spread further on Facebook and other social media, and Friday's sudden protest was organized. The McDonald's restaurant where the incident happened is part of the Western Railway station in Budapest, designed by the French architect Gustave Eiffel, which opened in 1897. I think that's the same Eiffel that designed the Eiffel Tower, but at any rate, it has a reputation as one of the most beautiful McDonald's in the world, but I've not yet been there, so I can't say whether it is indeed or not. But if I find photos, I'll let you know. But that's all beside the point. The point here being, come on, people. A mom has a baby. A baby has to eat. Put one and one together here.
It's that you don't have to do a simple mathematical equation when it comes to that, ladies and gentlemen. It's common sense.
Exactly, and if that theme is ready for me...
Oh yeah, go for it.
So, how did the world become so gay crazy? How hard must people make it for moms to be, well, moms? And when will I get to make an Air New Zealand safety video? Stay tuned for developments in our continuing battle against global socialism.
Yeah, if Corey didn't get into radio, ladies and gentlemen, he probably would have wanted to become a safety expert. That's just his thing. He likes watching safety documentaries. It's just his thing. He likes to do it. It's his Corey Evan pastime.
Yes, an American pastime right there. I think everything's the American pastime anymore, though. But I digress.
We are losing the American pastime as we know it, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we bring you the latest in global socialism, night in and night out here on the Evan Miller Report. All right, folks, no lawsuits across America tonight. We'll take the weekend off for that because Corey Evans working on a little special segment for that for Monday's Best of the Evan Miller Report. So we're going to give you a bit of an extended entertainment segment tonight. And first, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to cue up that entertainment theme music yet because I do want to give sort of a movie review on this weekend's movie, Tomorrowland, starring George Clooney and Brett Robertson. And according to the critics, I have not seen the movie myself. I have only read the reviews by the critics and of one prominent entertainment journalist out of Los Angeles, George Pinocchio. According to George Pinocchio, he says, while the acting from the likes of George Clooney and Brett Robertson are great in the movie, and what Disney's trying to do is trying to make this a very family-friendly sci-fi film, the message in the movie isn't clearly getting out there. And said the movie was very confusing at times and that you have to actually see the movie twice to be able to get a grasp of the movie. So on top of this, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to that theater, you may want to go in there, may not want to buy the popcorn, may not want to buy the drinks because you may miss a part of that movie which may leave you confused. Not to say I'm not going to get confused by the film. I probably will go see the film sometime or another. But you might better make sure you get a full night's sleep before you go see the movie to avoid any confusion. So,
good idea.
So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, that's my somewhat of a movie review for the Tomorrowland film in theaters today. Enjoy it if you have the money to be able to go see it. If not, you can always wait for it to show up on Netflix or DVD. And now, here's Corey Evan with the rest of tonight's entertainment news. And Corey, not doing good with one current reality television family because their 19 kids might be going off the airwaves.
Very unfortunate situation, but TLC has pulled 19 Kids and Counting from its lineup after reports surfaced that Josh Duggar had molested girls as a teenager. TLC said in a statement, quote, effective immediately, TLC has pulled all episodes of 19 Kids and Counting currently from the air. We are deeply saddened and troubled by this heartbreaking situation, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families and victims at this difficult time. Duggar has recently resigned from the Family Research Council in the wake of the reality TV star's apology after reports surfaced that he allegedly molested girls as a teenager. Tony Perkins, president of the Washington-based Christian lobbying group, said in a statement Thursday that Duggar resigned because of information becoming public that he believed would make it difficult for him to be effective. As executive director of FRC Action, he served as a public face of the organization. Hours after the resignation, Duggar posted the following statement on Facebook. Quote, 12 years ago, as a young teenager, I acted inexcusably, for which I am extremely sorry and deeply regret. I hurt others, including my family and close friends. I confess this to my parents, who took several steps to help me address the situation. We spoke with the authorities, where I confessed my wrongdoing, and my parents arranged for me and those affected by my actions to receive counseling. I understood that if I continued down this wrong road, that I would end up ruining my life. According to ABC News, the apology is in response to a 2006 police report first obtained by In Touch magazine. When Duggar was 14, he was accused of molesting 5 underage girls as a teen, People magazine reports. Josh's parents, Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, also replied on Facebook. And they also mentioned that Josh's wife, Anna, also issued a statement saying she knew about Josh's actions before they were married. She says she's been surprised by her husband's openness and humility in admitting this. Yeah, it is pretty surprising when you hear someone who's been involved in something like this as a teenager to be this open about it and be this repentant about it. So, my thing about this whole thing is the ones that are willing to repent of their past, those are the ones that I don't necessarily worry about. It's the ones that don't that we should all be worried about.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we like to say, sometimes network television executives don't exactly do their research. So, bad for those at the people at TLC didn't exactly vet this family properly before putting the show on the air. So
Right, exactly. And I wish they had done their homework on the guy that was hanging out with Mama June Shannon last year when what's her name? Here Comes Honey Boo Boo was being pulled off the air. I forgot it for a horrible moment.
That's another one. Absolutely, you're right on with that one, Corey. So that's why I don't watch reality television, ladies and gentlemen, because as soon as you get comfortable with someone, then something usually tends to happen. So piece of advice,
Unfortunately.
watch that reality TV with a grain of salt, because sometimes those people are not only just like you, they got something buried in their past that they don't want to show. They'll try whatever they can to hide it.
Yeah, a lot of our lives are like those shows. Don't forget that, folks. And the LA County District Attorney's Office has declined to press charges against Casey Kasem's widow, this from KABC. A charge evaluation sheet stated that there was insufficient evidence to file elder abuse charges against Jean Kasem. She was married to the radio legend for more than 30 years, but was stripped of control over his medical care in the final days of his life. His daughter, Carrie Kasem, was named as conservator in May 2014. Casey Kasem died last June in Washington, where his wife took him after removing him from a medical facility where he was receiving around-the-clock care. The longtime American Top 40 host had a form of dementia and severe bed sores when he died. Yeah. 6 months after the death, his children from his first marriage presented the LA Police Department with evidence that allegedly proved he was abused by his wife. Carrie Kasem said in a statement, quote, "My family is very sad to learn the LA County District Attorney Jackie Lacey has decided not to file charges against Jean Kasem. We did everything we could to save my dad at the end of his life, including getting an emergency court order for conservatorship. But we were too late. My father's second wife, Jean, had done everything she could to keep our father from us, while not providing the quality care that he, and every other senior in our society, deserves," unquote. Very sad for Mr. Kasem's family there, but Mrs. Kasem, I should say. Or is it Miss? I get confused sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. All I know is,
let's just say the late Mr. Kasem's wife. We'll just put it that way.
Yes, but at any rate, Mrs. Kasem, if you did indeed prevent him from getting medical care, that was not smart. I'll be kind about it this one time. And over to E! Online, where they have posted a report that apparently Mary-Kate and Ashley will not be returning to Full House. It will not be a full Tanner family reunion because Michelle Tanner, as Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, are not officially returning, according to E! News. They've confirmed that the two entrepreneurs are not appearing in Fuller House. The Olsen twins initially feigned surprise that Netflix was making a new series with John Stamos and Full House's original executive producers. And then Mr. John Stamos, the producer, called them out on Twitter. Then he talked to Mary-Kate and smoothed everything out, but we guess not enough for them to reprise their role for the new sitcom. I'm guessing that they'll have to write them out of the series by sending them to, I'd say probably Mother Russia, but that's just my best guess.
I would have usually said to send them over to New Zealand, but okay.
No, keep them away from New Zealand, I think. It's too pretty in New Zealand, I think.
Too pretty. All right, that's Corey Evan. He has the entertainment report. Thank you very much for that. And of course,
got it.
ladies and gentlemen, we had that movie review for Tomorrowland. I think that's the only major PG-rated film coming out this weekend, Corey. I don't think there's anything major in the box office coming out that we need to mention, do we?
I don't think so, other than Tomorrowland. There's just a remake of Poltergeist, and if this ad will go away, there we are. When Marie Was There, that's a PG-rated film, but it's probably a lesser release. But go ahead and check your local listings when Marnie was there. That's what it's called. I misread it. Sorry about that. But yeah, those are your entertainment stories for this week. Oh, yes, and I did have one last one to mention. Jay, did you ever see yesterday anyone sporting a red nose as you were out and about?
If you're mentioning Red Nose Day, no, I did not, but I did hear about the day yesterday.
Yeah, well, it did raise $21 million to help lift children and young people out of poverty in the U.S. and in some of the poorest communities in the world. And participants included Julia Roberts, Jimmy Fallon, Blake Shelton, Gwyneth Paltrow, Neil Patrick Harris, Richard Gere, Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston, Will Ferrell, Jack Black, Pharrell, Coldplay, One Direction, and Zac Efron, just to name a few of the many celebrities appearing in the 3-hour entertainment event hosted by Seth Meyers, David Duchovny, and Jane Krakowski. I unfortunately missed that show, but I wish I had my red nose right now, just to clown around. But then again, don't I always clown around, Jay?
That's what you do, Cor, and that's why you do entertainment for this program, night in and night out. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the Evan Miller Report for this Friday, May the 22nd, 2015. Once again, that programming note, we are off on Monday, Memorial Day. So if you're tuning in at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, you'll be listening to a Best of Evan Miller Report special here on the SHR Media Network, and we will be back on the program next Tuesday. So for all of us here at SHR Media, we wish you a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll talk to you again on Tuesday with the first one in our schedule as Southern Sense Radio after the Edge of Liberty at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific right here on SHR Media. And now with the latest weather forecast from the BBC Met Office for this Friday, here is Nick Miller.
Hello, we've had some flooding rain in Texas, and there may be more rain to come in that and other U.S. states as we go through the weekend all the way into Monday, Memorial Day. Slow-moving weather system, the focus for more severe weather. Bright colours developing during Saturday on the rainfall picture, not just intense downpours with a risk of flash flooding. There could be tornadoes breaking out, large damaging hail. Central southern plain states of the USA, particularly though parts of Texas through Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma and into Colorado as well. Showers of a lesser severity across westernmost parts of the USA and Canada. So here's a look at things then during Saturday. Scattered showers, maybe the odd thunderstorm breaking out into British Columbia. There will be some welcome rainfall into parts of California, but not enough to break the drought here, although the rain in Texas is going a long way to breaking the drought in this part of the USA. Vancouver looking like a damp Sunday. Seattle as well, but LA will be staying dry. We'll look at things down the eastern side of Canada and the USA, building warmth for all of these areas as we go through the weekend. The change most noticeable through eastern Canada. A lot of dry weather ahead of that weather system in the plain states. So to the east of that, building warmth dry, just a few showers and storms into Florida. We'll look at the forecast for Sunday and Monday, and there at last the temperature going up in Montreal. We'll feel the change.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.